everybody, and welcome to qualifying for the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship here in London. Group A is about to get underway, so let's hand over to your temporary commentators of Tom Brooks as well. Megan is on her way to the commentary box. So let's pass over.
Championship, then it's time for the final qualifying session of 2023. 22 drivers are going to be going head-to-head with one another. Group A is up first. We split them into two groups of 11 drivers. Jake Dennis, Nick Cassidy, Jean-Eric Verne, Sebastian Buemi, Sam Bird, Jake Hughes, Rene Rast, Lucas de Grassi, Sergio Setting-Camera, who ended up being disqualified from yesterday's race, and Dan Ticktum in the second Neo with Robin Freins completing the order. Going to be hugely exciting to see how this one plays out. If you're joining Formula E for the first time, first of all, welcome along. It is great to have your company. My name's Tom Brooks, alongside me, Dario Franchitti, here to guide you through the action. The only indoor-outdoor track on the Formula E calendar. And the name of the game in group qualifying here, Dario, is to get through to the top four so you can go forwards into the duels. Then you've got the quarters, the semis, and hopefully, if you're lucky enough and you're quick enough, the finals.
Yeah, and just to change things up a little bit, the cars in group qualifying are at 300 kilowatts of power, race power. And then if you're good enough to make it into the duels, they turn up to 350 kilowatts of power. And so you're then arriving at the corners a lot quicker, and the car will handle differently and all kinds of stuff. So you get more than one qualifying lap in the group sessions, but the track will continue to improve. So you really have to get everything together for that last lap, and then hopefully get no traffic, etc, etc. But as you see, there's no runoff areas, and the barriers are waiting. If you're slightly offline, slightly too greedy on the brakes, slightly too early on the throttle, there's absolutely no margin for error.
Well, here's a man who's riding on the crest of a wave. Jake Dennis, 2023 champion after a brilliant performance here yesterday. Finished third on the road, but following a penalty late race for Antonio Felix da Costa, he was promoted up to second. Third would have been enough, though, for him to be crowned as the champion, but he did it in spectacular style onto the podium, to the applause and the graciousness of the crowd here in London.
So brake warm up, step steer, out, push, push.
Okay, so they're just working through some processes coming out of the pit lane here, getting themselves ready.
Right, I'm just going to quickly introduce, and I'll hand you back over. So it'll be me covering again for today's qualifying session. And I don't know whether I'll be joining you for race, so I'll hand you back over now.
It's incredibly high grip, but just now he's now onto a different surface as he heads back outside, a different surface again as he goes down the hill of the exit ramp of the XL Centre, and then it's about to change again as he gets onto the bumpy streets of London. Those have massively different grip levels, and you see the bumps now appearing as well, so you've got to be good through all those different types of surface. You've got to get the car working through all those different types of corner. Through the turns 10, 11 now, 12. Now look how close the wall is in 13. And he brushes the apex and the exit wall. Now through 14, 15, look at the car bottoming out. They're going to try and stop the car for 16. Heavy braking area, probably the main overtaking chance of the lap. You'll see a attack mode activation zone on the outside. We'll explain that later in the race. Turn 17, 18 right-hander, up the entry lap into XL. Turn 19, the grip level's going to change again, sliding, and then get on that very abrasive surface, loads of grip again, coming to turn 20, and the push for the finish line now. First lap, a 1:11.599 from Nick Cassidy. His teammate Sebastian Buemi now.
Not bad at all from Cassidy. Buemi, though, betters the time by nearly 2.5 tenths, or just over 2.5 tenths of a second. Rene Rast going to third place on his first flying lap. Silvan Filippi on the right-hand side of your picture, the team principal for Envision. We heard Saunders talking to him a few moments ago. Understandably, frustration from the Envision team. Oh, and traffic right when you don't need it. That's Sergio Setting-Camera just holding up Jean-Eric Verne. Setting-Camera setting himself up for his first flying lap of the session as Verne comes across the timing line to go fourth quickest at the moment. What about Jake Dennis? Seemed pretty relaxed this morning, unsurprisingly so, after taking the title in spectacular fashion here yesterday with one of the most chaotic races I can remember in recent Formula E history. Said, though, the pressure's off here this afternoon.
Yeah, the pressure for Jake Dennis is absolutely off. He's definitely riding the crest of a wave. He's in such a good rhythm with the car that he'll get the job done, I think, today. There's Nick Cassidy, a man that had such a tough day yesterday. Actually, it looks like it unravelled. He was just trying to be actually too nice and help his teammate as well. They should have just focused on trying to win the Drivers' Championship and then look at the Team Championship today, but all unravelled for him. As we see Sam Bird, man, definitely definitely involved in this Teams Championship fight this afternoon. You're going to get fed up with us talking about this Teams Championship, but it is so important. On driver's eye view, the camera is right next to the driver's right eye inside the helmet. Sebastian Buemi now coming through turns 3, 4, and then turn 5. And he's a lot higher, this camera's a lot higher in the car than Sebastian's head, so you get a much better view. You see Jean-Eric Vergne, this is probably the traffic, as it comes up to turn 19. So was he impeded?
Yeah, I was just saying, set a camera just coming in towards turn 19 then. I don't think he was set a camera was doing it purposely in any way, shape or form. He's just, he's offline, but he's kind of on the apex of the corner.
Yeah,
you're setting yourself up for a bit of trouble there.
Well, exactly. This is a driver's eye view, and it's a completely blind corner as well. So you'll see from Jean-Eric Vergne's view when he comes through turn 18
Yeah, he didn't
now,
know he was there.
you can actually see the car up the hump. Okay, the car has disappeared now. Actually, it doesn't completely fully disappear, but
I don't think
you've got to say Seti Camera
not
he should have known what was happening, and the team should have told him, because as quickly, the speed differential is such that it's very difficult to react once you've seen it in your mirrors.
Just hearing on team radio, Sebastian Buemi saying it's starting to rain a little bit. Now, we were talking earlier on this morning, about a possibility of rain, and it's coming, and it's 1:45 now.
That is not good.
It's an indoor-outdoor track, so first of all, let's explain that. Of course, half the track's indoors, half the track's outdoors. So it's only the outdoor parts of the circuit that are going to affect it. The indoor parts have got a different surface as well, like a sandpaper type thing. So essentially, you've got more grip on the inside. But we had a damp track for FP2 here yesterday morning. A few drivers were getting caught out. It looked quite greasy out there in particular.
Yeah, the new surface in turn 16, 17, 18, that area was reprofiled from last year, so it's got a new surface which looks lovely and shiny, but it's actually quite low grip, and especially when it rains. So if it does rain, it's going to get even more interesting. Oh, bit of oversteer from Robin Freins in the ABB Cupra, the 6th quickest. If it was me right now, I'd be pushing the team. Let's go, because otherwise, if we get caught with a downpour, we're in trouble. The radar doesn't look like it's showing too much at this point.
Well, we'll keep an eye on things and see how it develops. Not particularly much of an idea of how much it's affecting the track, if anything at all, at the moment. There's Thomas Biermeier, the team principal for ABB Cupra. I imagine he's got a few more frown lines on his forehead as a result of their 2023 season. It's not been particularly fortuitous for ABB Cupra, and so that continued yesterday with a double DNF following technical issues for both of their cars. They'd love to be able to go out on a high here, though, this afternoon as we watch Sam Bird making his way through in towards turn 16. This is where the attack mode will be activated in the race. If you're new to Formula E, hang on a moment.
Reports of some small spots of rain. Do you agree?
I guess we'll never find out what Sam Bird's thoughts there are as his engineer comes through. Hang on a moment, there we go.
So we're safe on time, and we're also safe on traffic around us.
So essentially what they're saying there, Dario, is your time's good enough at second. If there was a downpour and the track got a lot slower, Bird would be okay at this point.
Well, they're saying you're safe on time as far as you've got enough time to do the laps that we talked about. The Mahindra's getting slightly in Sam Bird's way in turn 2, compromised it just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's head down to Saunders, who's in pit lane, see what he's found for us.
Yes, thank you very much, guys. I'm outside the Envision garage, and I just want to talk about that situation going on in the team standings, where we've got the Envision Racing team and Jaguar TCS Racing, who share the same powertrain, level on points in the team standings. Now, my understanding, having spoken to both teams, is that it is agreed that at this point, it's all teams for themselves. This working relationship they have up to this point to make each car stronger sort of goes out the window. It's now both teams are clearly good to go into the final race of the season and do what they can and see which one comes out on top. And there are 3 of those Jaguar-powered cars in this session alone. So let's see who makes it into the duels and keeps that dream alive.
Thank you very much indeed, Saunders. So every team out for themselves in the title battle. Jaguar and Envision tied on points, just to remind you, in the team standings. Jaguar ahead of Envision on countback as a result of the win yesterday for Mitch Evans. And just go back to my earlier point, I was talking about attack mode, and essentially if you're new to Formula E, attack mode basically gives the drivers 50 kilowatts more usable power during the race. They get 8 minutes of time to activate it, and they can split that over maybe 4 minutes and 4 minutes, 2 minutes and 6 minutes, etc. Depends on how they want to work it, but it gives them more power and, as the name suggests, an opportunity to attack other drivers and overtake.
But there is also a time penalty, a track position penalty to using it. So the tactics of when to use it to lose the minimal amount of positions is absolutely key and will be key in this afternoon's race because of the the amount of energy that the teams are going to have in the battery. The race is 2 laps shorter than yesterday. You're going to see a more attacking race, so you're going to see the tactics of attack mode being even more key. Sebastian Buemi, as you see on screen now in the Envision, has gone quickest of anybody through the second sector, and his teammate Nick Cassidy quickest of anybody in the first sector.
Yeah, so this is where the push laps are now going to start to come in with just under 3 minutes remaining in the session. Nick Cassidy in the bottom right-hand side of your picture as well. We're looking at the 2 Envisions as Buemi comes around the final corner. Personal best in Sector 1, Sector 2 and Sector 3. He goes fastest overall, 1:10.7. What about Cassidy? His response going to be anything near? He was fastest overall in the first sector. Personal best in the second sector for the Kiwi as he rounds it into the final corner. A couple of bites at the cherry into towards turn 20, but it's not cost him too much time. He goes 0.2 quicker than teammate Buemi. So at the moment, with just over 2 minutes remaining in this session, it's an Envision 1-2, but you can guarantee that order is going to be set to change. Just a reminder, top 4 from the group qualifying stages go through into the duels. John-Eric Verne across the line goes 6th quickest then in the DS Penske. What about Jake Dennis? Down in 10th in free practice 3 earlier on this morning. Flicks it into the left of turn 20. Aims for the timing line. Personal best for him, but only 6th quickest.
Have to do better than that for the team's championship, but he's let's hear from him. No Sam Bird actually.
Okay. How safe are we?
We are 2/10 safe at the moment.
At the moment, I mean, that's a constantly moving target. Depends if it is actually
It
raining
looks
outside,
like
which we don't know because
Envision
we're inside a building,
trying
inside a building.
to regain
Such
some
a
of
choice
the
commentary boxes.
well, the
Personal
championship
best
what
sex
they
times
lost
coming in on this one for
yesterday,
Jake
sadly.
Dennis. Now,
Not
Neil
Cassidy.
McLaren have had a torrid
Used to
weekend so
winning.
far. Special livery on their car here in London, designed in conjunction
trying their
with
best, and yet
AI.
they
Spectacular looking
unfortunately
machine
could
it
not
is,
show
but
back
Rene
during the
Rast very
race.
unlucky yesterday with an incident on track, then had to get the car fixed after a red flag was thrown. As a result of that, broke part Fermi rules, ended up at the back. Jake Hughes also got collected by Roberto Merri in his race as well. So they need to try and turn things around to have a strong end to 2023 after what's been a campaign that's had good performances and good pace, especially in qualifying, but hasn't necessarily delivered when it comes to the races. We see the 2 Envision cars, one in the picture-in-picture, one in the big picture, as they're attacking. This is their last lap, though. 40 seconds to go. So by the time they get to the checkered flag, this is it. Tyres are in their operating window. You're absolutely threading it on. Now push everything you've got because qualifying is going to be so important for the race today.
Sorry, Buemi with, personal best, and look at that, flirting with the wall on the outside of turn 13. Nick Cassidy, you can see him on the bottom right of your picture. Not fastest in the first sector, not fastest or personal best in the second sector. It's looking like either for the Kiwi. Let's see if he can try and pull it back as Buemi continues his ascension through the field. Not quite quick enough to overhaul Nick Cassidy at the moment, but as he comes through into the final sector, if he can have a last good couple of corners, maybe this will be an opportunity for him to try and upset things in Envision. He aims for the timing line. The checkered flag is out. It's a 10th of a second slower. He ends the session at the best of second place. I don't think Nick Cassidy, meanwhile, is going to improve either, but the man on the move at the moment is this man here, Sam Bird, as he comes through the second and final sectors now. Personal best in sector 1. Fastest overall in sector 2. Aims for the timing line in sector 3. Loses a bit of time but stays third quickest. Dan Tipton into 4th as well in the Neo, so it looks like that's as best as he's going to be able to achieve. Rene Rast improves.
Only
goes 5th quickest in the Neon McLaren as well, so no dual appearance for him. What about anybody else? Dennis is one. He's
Dennis going on.
flirting with
The new
the
champion,
top
of course,
4 to get
Dennis.
him into the duels.
We're going to find out then through the final corner for Jake Dennis. It's going to be duels or bust there for him.
Ooh.
He goes second quickest,
And
fastest
he
overall in the third sector.
ticked him out of the top 4 and goes second, just below Cassidy. But Cassidy wishes that's what happened in the championship, so sadly it's the other way around.
Principal for Avalanche Andretti. So Jake Dennis makes it through, as do the 2
The
divisions,
top 4
and also
for Group
Sam
A,
Bird,
Cassidy,
Dan Tipton,
Dennis,
Jean-Eric Verne, Rene Rast, Sergio Sette
Buemi and
Lucas Di Grassi,
Bird.
Jake Hughes mired down in 10th place as well, considering he's been on pole a couple of times this year. The
Right.
British driver will be disappointed with that.
Gonna
He finished a few tenths of a second ahead of Robin
Punch you back
Freitz.
over.
Well then, difficult day at the office for Neon McLaren so far, with both drivers failing to make it through, and the shake of the head there says it all for me and James, team principal.
Yeah, and again, because the race is 2 laps shorter today, it's going to be that much much more difficult to make these big overtaking manoeuvres come from the back to the front that we saw with Antonio Felix da Costa yesterday. So they'll be very disappointed with that, the McLaren team.
So, qualifying Group A classification then. Nick Cassidy, Jake Dennis, Sebastian Buemi, Sam Bird make it through into the duels. Dan Ticktum, Jean-Eric Verne, René Rast, Sergio Sette-Camera, Lucas de Grassi, Jake Hughes and Robin Fries will go no further here this afternoon ahead of round 16. Well, Gracie, the fans that have made their way in a 40,000 capacity for the XL Centre here in London, and every single one of those seats is sold out. Despite there being a few empty ones here in qualifying, they will be filled up come the racing here this afternoon. And it's going to be hugely exciting, especially as we go into the duels here, Dario, because obviously we've got all of the drivers who are trying to make it through into those duels, and it funnels its way down, and then we get the fight for pole position. But crucially, in the duels, only one chance to set that flying lap. It's going to be hugely exciting. Let's head down to Radzi before we get Group B qualifying underway in just a couple of moments' time and see what Radzi's got up to down in the paddock.
Joined by James Barkley, team principal of Jaguar TCS Racing. James, yesterday was an enormous day for obvious reasons, the Drivers' Championship, but this is now as big and, dare I possibly say, maybe even bigger for you guys, and it couldn't be any closer.
Yeah, the Drivers' Championship obviously is a really important one, but the Teams' Championship, that's what everyone in the organisation is working to drive and achieve. So yeah, I think from our point of view, it's the one which represents the great work. But listen, coming into the last race of the year, 1-2, ourselves and our customer team Envision, that's all we can ask for, right? For 3 years in a row, we put ourselves in a position for the team of the Drivers' Championship, and this is what we work for. The rest now today is just enjoying it, because this is what we've worked all year to be in this position.
Enjoying it, but it matters. So how important would Sam's performance be in the race? What does he need to do to kind of really tick that box for you?
Well, firstly, he's done a fantastic first job there. First group quali, he's through into the duels. That's the first key important step taken, and that's under big pressure, right? The final race of the year, so fantastic performance. But as we showed yesterday, you know, you just can never give up wherever you start. But yeah, second group to go now. Let's see how we get on with Mitch. But yeah, we will continue racing right until the last lap, and we're just going to enjoy today. This, like I said, this is what everyone has worked in this organisation so hard for so long. We've got many of our colleagues, fans, partners here, and it's amazing to have that home ground kind of support as well.
Thanks very much, James. Couldn't be any more exciting.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you very much indeed, Radzi, and to James Barkley down there from Jaguar TCS Racing.
Right, before the qualifying starts, well, Group B qualifying starts, I'm going to take you through the results of the first session for Group A as Group B gets ready to go out onto track. Right, first was Cassidy, second Dennis, Buemi third is fourth, Ticktum fifth, sixth is Verne, seventh is Rast, eighth is Sette-Camera, ninth is de Grassi, Hughes 10th, and 11th is Fries. Up in the next group is Evans, Verline, Gunter, de Costa, Nato, Van Dorn, Mortara, Fenestraz, Lotterer, Muller, and Merry. Let's hope that they have a good qualifying in store, and qualifying has just got underway. So I'll hand you back over temporarily.
In that, and predict who will be progressing forwards from the duels. Scan the QR code, get yourself involved, and we would love to hear from you and see who of the drivers you think are going to progress forwards when we get into the quarterfinals, then to the semis, and then of course to the finals, of which drivers you reckon are going to emerge on top.
So apparently it's spitting down at turn 16, which is the southeast corner of the circuit, and that's the direction it's coming from. So, and that's the slipperiest part of the circuit when it's wet too. And as the drivers will be coming down there, the first thing they'll see is those spots on their visor, and that alerts them that there's probably going to be a bit less grip when they try and touch the brake pedal.
You see there, track temperature 31 degrees, air temperature 20, 67% humidity, and a probability of rain of 19%. You can see a couple of spots of camera rain on the camera lens there down at turn 16 as well. This is where we saw Sasha Fenestraz have an almighty accident at one point here yesterday, and it's also where we saw drivers getting it wrong in the greasy conditions for FP2 yesterday morning.
Frank had a big shot, didn't he, there? He He lost the back end coming through the kink braking, because with it being less grip, you're actually braking earlier and you're still turning at that point. It's bumpy as well, and you saw Robin Freins had a snap of oversteer. The car turned hard left into the wall and did some pretty big damage.
Yeah, left the App Cooper team with a lot of work to do ahead of qualifying. Thankfully, he was able to make it out. Unfortunately for them, it was a double DNF come race time. Here is Edo Mortara making his way around the circuit in the Maserati. A lot of pressure on his shoulders and a lot of rumours floating around in the early part of the season as to whether he would be continuing with that team. But he managed to pull his season around a little bit with some stronger results, especially last time out actually in Rome, with some good some good top 5 finishes.
I think he got the wall there,
you're
Tom.
right, yeah.
Off for 13.
So, Edo Mortara really pushing the envelope at the moment. Teammate Maxi Günther not too far down the road as they head in towards 16. Fastest overall in the third sector. That's immediately changed, though. Let's head down to Saunders, who's in the pit lane.
Yes, I'm here at Avalanche Andretti with Michael Andretti. Jake looks like he's having fun out there.
Yeah, for sure. A little more relaxed today, for sure. But, you know, what he just did there in that qualifying session says a lot about him. You know, that shows that he's a real champion. You know, he's still very focused and knows that he still has a race to win. So I was very impressed with that.
So looking ahead to the race today, including this session that's going on right now, yesterday we saw a little bit of friction between yourself and Porsche. Have there been any discussions about the upcoming race today?
Yeah, I think it was more misunderstanding than anything, and yeah, we had to talk about it, and you know, everything's good. You know, we're here also to help them win a championship if we can.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
Keep pushing for the lap.
Well, good to hear there from Michael Andretti. Thanks very much indeed for that, Saunders, and also from Mitch Evans as well. Just his team's heading into keep pushing on at the moment. Evans sits at the top of the order, 1:11.0.
Did you see that snap of oversteer? That'll be the slick part of the track with the wet, but now you're trying to stop. Can he get it stopped under these slick conditions? Yeah, very nice for Max Günther.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good out here at the moment, is Günther. He was fastest overall in the second sector on his last lap. He's up in 4th at the moment. He is through to the duels, and this is going to be really critical, actually, because we're normally used to seeing the fast laps coming in at the end of the session. But if that rain continues to fall down, it's going to be the drivers who get the lap times in early.
Yeah, and there's 3 drivers quicker than him right now, as the timing screens move. Norman Nato now has gone first, so Mortara's now gone first, so Mortara's now 3rd.
But they're like on the bubble as well.
Completely changed lap by lap, and then we've got the unknown of what the rain is actually doing.
So here's Mitch Evans then in the Jaguar, just coming into the pit lane, isn't he? So
down to 50 kilometres an hour. You see the sign.
Yep. And we have a look at the replay here of Edo Mortara. This is going to be that snap of oversteer, I reckon, that he had. This is going to be...
See the back wheels off the ground.
Yeah. Through 15 into 60. This is where the track gets particularly greasy. Have a look on board here. Out of 13. Snap of oversteer going on the... Oh, yeah. Lovely stuff from Edo Mortara. That car not looking particularly settled out here on this track at the moment, but he's still able to put some good lap times in. At the moment, he sits 3rd quickest, just over a 10th of a second shy of the best time set by Norman Nato. James Rossiter watching on. Mortara back into the pit lane as well.
So this is the lull, but Da Costa's not in the lull. He's pushing hard from 10, 11. Again, that camera that gets so close to the wall. How's Da Costa looking? 25.0. He's about 3/10 off. He's gone a little bit quicker through the second sector. But he's got some time to make up if he wants to get in to the duels.
Yeah, I think he's lost a bit of time in this one. Let's head down to Karun, though, with just over 6 minutes remaining of this Group B qualifying session. What do you have for us, Karun?
Yeah, just standing down the pit lane, guys. You can see a lot of cars have come past me here. Da Costa, as you say, I can hear going on the track. Clearly, they don't think it's going to rain because they've come in to swap tyres for the other set, which we often see in this group stage of qualifying. But if they thought it was going to rain, they wouldn't be doing so. So, yeah, clearly the team's weather forecast, they seem more confident than we do.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Karun. Bit of psychological rain then, seemingly, for the drivers at the moment. This is Sasha Fenestraz just going through into turn 10, or trying to, and locking the front right, going off through the escape road, and having to take a bit of evasive action there in the Nissan.
You can see as soon as he starts to turn and unloads that inside tyre, it just locks. Nothing he can do. Took the escape road, as you say. and the lap's over.
Yeah, flat spot at the front right there as well, so he'll be back into the pit lane, change over the tyres.
The good thing with these tyres, though, Tom, they don't tend to flat spot like a traditional slick would. You can actually do some hellacious lock-ups and get away with it.
So, good number of drivers still in the pit lane, including 3 of the 4 who at the moment are going to be making it through into the dual stages. Only Mitch Evans out on track from those top 4. But now we'll see the final runs coming in. Don't forget about the Formula E Predictor app as well on the bottom left corner of your screen.
Right,
Scan the QR code.
So going to read you through the top 4.
When we come,
Currently in first, Ignato, second is Evans, Mortaro is third, and Verline is fourth. There are 5 minutes left to go of Group B's
that car
session.
does not have one lap pace at the moment. Obviously, race pace is very, very good in it, but it's not. It doesn't. They can't switch it on for that one lap explosion that is needed, and they've suffered from that a little bit.
The thing is, it's been their Achilles heel, hasn't it? They haven't necessarily qualified so well. It leaves them mired in the pack. You've got a lot of work to do then in the race, and you're already on the back foot before the lights go out.
Yeah, and that's okay if it's a very energy-sensitive race. And there's a lot of overtaking opportunities. We saw that in Portland. We saw it in Brazil, and this is not one of those tracks. Every overtaking maneuver today, you're going to have to wrestle the position from the car in front, and that makes it more difficult to do what the Costa did yesterday and come from the back to the front. Again, race is 2 laps shorter today.
Yeah, 34 laps for the race duration here this afternoon. Looking at Stoffel Van Dorn, had a bit of traffic on this lap, just briefly coming out of the pit exit. Were a couple of drivers, including Mitch Evans and the...
I think Stoffel's on a prep lap, Tom, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're right. So he is just going to warm himself up. And in terms of a prep lap, for those who are new to Formula E, what does that terminology mean?
So in the preparation lap, you're getting the tyres into their operating window. You get the fronts and the rears into their operating window. Sometimes easy to get the rears in with wheel spin and stuff like that, but to get everything, very narrow operating window when they're at a maximum grip level for the whole lap. And that's what these preparation laps do. You can use the brakes, you can weave from side to side, all those different things to put the energy into the tyre to start that lap.
So these are the 14 principals of Jaguar TCS Racing, Maserati MSG, Tag Heuer Porsche and Avalanche Andretti. As we look at the Maserati just coming through the final corner. Pascal Verline very closely following him, and now this is Stoffel Van Dorn pushing. This is what they call a push lap as he makes his way through turns 3 and turn 4 into the daylight for the first time. Drops down the hill. You can see how bumpy it is, and a snap of oversteer on the exit. Flick it through the left, then the right. You burst into the daylight once again, then it's into the right-hander. This is turn 9 before the longest straight on the track. This is a good overtaking opportunity as you head down in towards the Custom House chicane, and this gives you an idea of just the sort of bumpiness that the drivers are dealing with, especially under braking here for the reigning champion. He's on personal best in the first sector. Has Van Dorn really close with the wall on the outside of 13 there. So no quarter given here for the Belgian driver as he heads down into 16.
And right now, it's a really good sector for him, sector 2. And he's trying to go top of the timesheets, but you've got about 3 more corners, a little bit of traffic ahead as well with the Porsche, but I don't think it's going to be a factor. Looks like Da Costa starting his lap ahead of him.
Always a bit of traffic possibly in front here for Stoffel Van Dorn as well, in the form of one of the Porsches. I think that might be Felix Da Costa as Van Dorn goes across the line, goes second quickest. 2 minutes remaining of this session. What about Mitch Evans? Is he going to be able to improve from third at the moment? Max Günther's on a bit of a quick one here in the Maserati. He breaks the beam to the timing line, loses a lot of time in that final sector. Looks like he might have just backed off a touch. As Evans comes across the line, he goes fastest then by 0.08 of a second from Norman Nato. So it's Evans now at the top from Norman Nato. Look at that though from Nico Muller. What a lap time in the App Cupra, equals the best lap set by Mitch Evans at the moment. And you can see what it means to Thomas Bierman then, the team principal for App Cupra. Something for him to smile about finally.
When you say equal, I mean equal to the thousandth of a second, exactly the same time.
Really impressive stuff there from Nico Muller. I bet you a fiver he wouldn't be able to do that again. Team radio.
Scrappy lap. Yep, we left the car at 6 again.
Talking about turn 6, I think, which is the bottom of the ramp. Now they've got time to do a cool lap, mostly everybody, and then start another push lap before the checkered flag comes out.
Here's Antonio Felix Da Costa. He was seething yesterday after being handed a 3-minute time penalty. Was on for podium, second place finish. Yeah, and that podium.
This man, Mortara, though, is a 10th up so far through this first sector, Tom.
Yeah, he's looking really good here as Edo Mortara. Let's see whether he is going to be able to get himself into the duels for the 8th time this season as he comes down in towards turn 16. A lot of trail breaking into there. He's up in that second sector as well. It's not a personal best for him, but it is still up relative to... Did he almost clip the wall there going through 16? It looked really tight. Sorry, through 18 even. Looked really tight. White flag is out and a bit of traffic right at the point of the lap where you don't need it. It's going to scupper Edo Mortara's time here as well, with just 30 seconds and 1 flying lap remaining of this session.
He's hit the wall hard. Look how squint the steering wheel is in a straight line. Yeah. He's hit the wall, so he's damaged the car halfway through that lap.
Yeah, I think that was the left-hander of 17, so just before 18. And I just had a feeling he might have clipped it on the inside.
Did you hear the noise? I didn't hear anything, but yeah, that's, a lot of times you'll hear the whack as he just clipped the apex. Roberto Meri in the Mahindra, tough baptism for him into Formula E this season. Took over the drive from Oliver Rowland halfway through the season.
Yeah, let's see whether Meri's going to be able to improve in time as the checkered flag is now out. He does improve in time, but he stays 11th quickest at the moment. What about Antonio Felix da Costa?
Right, so
8th quickest for him for now.
Group
Really
B has now finished.
And it is an improvement in time, but it's not an improvement
Evans
in position. Norman Nato
is
through
first,
20 then.
Muller
He backs off on this
second,
final flying lap.
Nato
Third quickest is the
first,
best he can
and
aim
then
for.
Dawn
And we're hearing
finishes
more
in
rain outside. Maybe that's why we're not seeing these laps go a bit quicker. But saying that, Verline
current
up,
events
Evans
are
up as well on their best.
So,
yeah, let's see
Other
what
Evans
the
is having
rest
a
of the
great
drivers are going to be
weekend.
able to do. Pascal Verline aiming to the line, goes 5th quickest, but just misses out on the duels then. Maxi Gunter, can he improve in the Maserati? He can, but it's only 8th for him at the end of the session. Evans goes across the line and improves in time by a few tenths of a second to stay quickest. And it looks like we're going to have Mitch Evans, Nico Muller, Norman Nato, and then Stoffel van Dorn as the 4 drivers who make it through into the duels. What a drive, especially from Nico Muller. Impressive performance for him in the Abt Cupra, and well, given the fact that they have not had a very good season so far, that is, I'm just having a look actually at Nico Muller's results in qualifying this year. That's going to be his first dual appearance since Berlin, I think, as a matter of fact. Yeah, so really impressive stuff from Nico Muller as he progresses forwards.
Tough one for da Costa, though.
Yeah, it is. On the other side of the coin, da Costa down in 10th at the end of that session. Verline failing to make it through as well. And, of course, that's really important for the Teams Championship for Porsche because they are horns locked together with Avalanche Andretti for 3rd in the standings. James Rossiter disappointed there. Slight mistake from Edo Mortara when he clipped the wall on what was going to be his quickest lap of the session. That would have elevated him surely up into the duels. Let's have a look at the final qualifying classification then for Group B. Mitch Evans for Jaguar, Abt Cupra's Nico Muller, Nissan's Norman Nato, and DS Penske's Stoffel van Dorn make it forwards into the duels. We say goodbye to Verline, Mortara, Lotterer, Gunter, Fenestras, da Costa, and Roberto Meri here this afternoon. So the duels are about to begin here in London for the final time this season. Let's head down to Nicky and the team and get the latest as the rain begins to come down.
Well, as you can see behind me, the Porsches are going back inside the garage. They're going to have to really regroup, have a bit of a briefing there, because neither of the Porsche cars have got through to the duels, which is, well, it's a massive setback when it comes down to the Teams Championship for them. I mean, and in the race, of course, you want to bring home the points. But this is a problem because all of the big competition, Andretti, Jag and Vision, they're all through.
Yeah, it's the battle of the sister powertrains. It's Porsche versus Avalanche Andretti, and then Envision versus Jaguar. So very interesting battles here going into the race. And Jake Dennis is the only Porsche powertrain driver to make it to the duel. So right now that's continuing to be a one-man show, putting the team on his back. And crucially, they're 4th in the Teams Championship, just a couple points away by this factory Porsche team behind us.
There wasn't quite the pace yesterday as well in that one-lap pace that we saw at Porsche, but they did have it in the race. So can they claw their way back up?
With the faster pace that we're expected to see this afternoon, it's going to be even more difficult to overtake. So thus qualifying be right now more important than yesterday. But as we know, as we see from yesterday's race, anything can happen.
Well, there is some good news in the pit lane after that session. Let's go down to Saunders with Thomas Biermeier.
Right, yes indeed, here with Thomas Biermeier at the Abt Cupra garage. Now you must be a happy man because Nico Muller's into the duels and it's starting to rain outside.
He did a great job. It was a fantastic lap, to be honest. Our target for today was that we want to finish the season with a positive result, and to do else is already a positive result for us.
Okay, well, this is a great place to be. Obviously, we've got the duels to come. Regardless of how that goes, it's a great place to start a race, potentially, where rain is forecasted, and we only have to cast our minds back to Berlin and seeing how good you guys were in the rain in qualifying.
Yes, if you don't have the quickest car in dry conditions, maybe you need sometimes some rain, and then hopefully it stays now wet. This would be good for us, and then everything is possible. But we saw yesterday, it's a unique place here. Everything can happen. We have to survive first, and hopefully we see the checkered flag with some points.
Well, we're very much looking forward to see what you can do in the duels and then the race later. Back to the commentary booth.
Thank you. Thank you, Saunders. Thank you, Thomas. Good to hear some positive news from the Cupra camp here this afternoon. Some super slow-mos just before the rain began to fall here at the XL in London. It really is going to be a bit of a twist in the tail ahead of the duels here this afternoon, which will be underway in just a couple of moments as we look at Mitch Evans on a quick one. So then, time for the duels for the drivers here this afternoon. Just a few moments away from getting our first underway. Will be Sebastian Buemi and Jake Dennis going head-to-head against one another. Very much looking forward to seeing how that is going to develop. The thing is, with these aerial shots overhead, it looks relatively okay and nice and dry and all clear. Here, though, at the XL, a bit of a different story outside, Daria.
Yeah, the last shot we saw from turn 16, there was definitely some precipitation, so that is going to completely change, well, at least a third of the lap. It depends how far to the west Andre Lotter having a good time.
I had a brief moment of wondering if he was being serious with that then.
But yeah, it's going to be difficult. Much slippier track. You've got to change the mechanical balance, all the electronics in the car to put power down, because these things rely on the grip level of the car. So the power down systems, the systems to stop it locking on the brakes. See Pascal Wehrlein not having nearly as much fun.
Helmet's still on.
Lotter was, yeah, he's not a happy boy. No. I think, you know, I would say actually Lotter is probably his last Formula E race today. He's going to go back to the Porsche World Endurance Squad, which is a key member, absolutely key member, multiple Le Mans winner. So he's probably just enjoying that final day of what has been a tough season for Andre Lotter, an absolute world-class driver. And you see,
look at that. Yeah, probability of rain was 20% earlier on, now up to 45.
I want a job as a British weather person.
Because you can just get it wrong all the time and not worry.
Look at that. There's some rain. It's going sideways.
Look at that. We've probably got Michael Fish to do the forecast or something like that.
Yeah, there's a chance of rain today, but it might be sunny.
Wow. Well, yeah, this is going to throw a real cat amongst the pigeons. We're looking forward to the duels getting underway in a couple of moments' time. Quarterfinals up first. 4 groups of 2 drivers apiece.
Next,
Buemi and Dennis in the first one. Then we're going to have Sandberg versus Nick Cassidy.
Will be
Norman Nato
between
versus Nick
Buemi and Dennis
versus Mitch Evans. We'll have then 4 drivers from the 8.
And then it will be Bird and Cassidy, then Nato and Mullin, and then Dawn and Evans.
Into the finals.
Quarterfinals are about to begin.
Pole position. This is going to be really exciting to see how it all works out, and of course that variable of the wet weather coming into play as well. We can see that we've had Dennis versus Buemi once earlier this year, and that was
right now. Dennis has the highest votes, of 78% chance of winning. I think
forwards into the
semis.
Because you've got to say that right now, the 1 lap pace of the Jaguar powertrain in the Envision ahead is better than the Porsche powertrain in the Andretti car, the red Andretti car. So, but Jake Dennis is the current now new Formula E champion as of yesterday. Sebastian Buemi is also won the Formula E championship. So the big unknown is the slippery conditions out there.
Yeah, we'll see how the drivers are going to tackle it. Lap times were sort of the mid-1 minute 10s before that. They're going to be significantly slower as a result.
But remember, you've got 50 kilowatts of extra power now,
Good point,
which is
well
probably
made.
what you don't want in the wet. But I mean, that's somewhere close to 20% extra power. So it's a fair chunk.
And we are going to have a wet, dry circuit. This is going to be really interesting to see how it all works out as we look at Sebastian Buemi then heading down in towards turn 10 and then 11. We've seen so many drivers making a bit of a meal of it, bit of rain on the camera lens. It's sort of, as you said earlier on, the southeastern end of the circuit down at turn 16 where it's looking worse, and you can see that visibly with a bit more rain on the camera lens. Nothing in terms of standing water at the moment. It doesn't look like the track's overly greasy. but nonetheless, I imagine it is still going to slow lap times down by a little margin here.
Yeah, it didn't look like there was a massive amount of standing water, did there?
No, it looked relatively okay. So let's have a look and see how this is going to work out. This is Katie Munnings, the Extreme E driver. Good to have her here for the Avalanche Andretti team. As Cassidy comes across the line then to begin, Buemi comes across the line rather, I should say, to begin his first and only flying lap. Slightly wide at the apex of one there. That's sending him a little bit offline into turn 2.
Yeah, but that's normally the line that they carry so much speed through 1, but that obviously sacrifices 2. You can see now the car has become less responsive as he gets onto the less grippy surface outdoors, and it's about to get less grippy as he gets into the part of the circuit where there's a bit of precipitation.
So,
Buemi gone ahead.
Yeah, he is just by a tenth of a second over Jake Dennis in that first sector. That's in terms of the mini sectors at the moment. Will Dennis be able to claw it back as he comes through for the first proper full sector of the lap? Buemi threading the Ivan Needle through the chicane, really close to the wall on the outside of 13. He's extending that advantage now over Jake Dennis, but the middle sector of the lap is where we could see things changing hands. But Dennis with the Porsche powertrain, the Jaguar powertrain of Sebastian Buemi looking the stronger of the two at the moment. And that Envision car dancing his way through the final series of sectors. Over the rise we go in towards turn 19 and turn 20. Is Buemi going to knock out Jake Dennis in qualifying here? Dennis is catching in the middle sector. He's gone pretty well there as Buemi comes to the timing line. It's going to be a 1:10.604, so pretty good comparative to the fully dry times that we had earlier on. The rain doesn't look like it's affected track.
Look at 2/100ths of a
Dennis
second
is really on top
with
of Sebastian
Dennis
Buemi as he
ahead
comes in
of
towards turn
Buemi.
20. Are we going to see an upset here as Dennis comes to break the beam?
It appears like Dennis may win. Dennis
thousandths of a second
appears
he knocks
to be
out Sebastian Buemi just when you thought it was all
faster
over.
than
And so
Buemi
had
has
it in his
won
back
by
pocket.
what
Dennis
was
with an
definitely
absolutely
probably the
superb
closest we've
couple
seen
of
all
final
weekend.
sectors as he overhauls Sebastian Buemi. The Envision team are out, and of course this is going to have a knock-on effect for his starting position, but also the team's championship fight as well.
Confidence of the champion. He's absolutely right at the crest of a wave. Watch him here. He brakes for turn 10. Look at the head, looking through the corner as much as he possibly can. Fantastic stuff.
Good to see Jake Dennis then clawing it back. We move straight on to the second of our quarterfinals. Sam Bird versus Nick Cassidy. Jaguar powertrain versus Jaguar powertrain. 70% of you are going the way of Nick Cassidy. This is Bird's first appearance
now
in the duels
in the
at
duel
the
with
London
Nick
XL.
Cassidy.
And he will
Let's
be
hope
seeking to reach the
Envisions
duel
don't get
final
beaten
for the
another
third
time.
consecutive race. He actually lost the last two finals though. However, as Cassidy in the second Envision comes across the timing line down in towards turn 1. All nice and smooth through there for the Kiwi. What about Sam Bird as he continues on a bit further up the road? Cassidy with a little bit of an advantage in that first sector already over the British driver. The hometown hero would love to put on a show for the home crowd here. As he did he go to the wall there on the outside of 13? It was mightily close, and I think he might have just kissed it. And that's going to cost him a fraction more time. He is still catching Nick Cassidy though as he heads down in towards turn 16. Let's see what Cassidy's next sector time is going to be relative to Bird as the British driver comes to the final sector.
Bird
yeah, he
by
has lost time.
0.349 seconds, which is just widened even more to 4.5 tenths of a second. And now it's closed up to 3 tenths of a second. And it looks like Cassidy has won. Cassidy, for once this weekend, has won against Bird with I think it said 9. It was almost 3 tenths of a second.
It's all to play for. There's no team orders between customer and manufacturer at the moment in the team's championship.
Just looking here at Nick Cassidy on his flying lap, a 1:10.228, despite the fact that the rain has kind of flirted with coming down. It hasn't really affected track conditions too much though, because that's one of the quickest lap times we've seen all day here actually.
Yeah, exactly right.
groups, we move on to the third of the quarter-final duels. Norman Nato versus Nico Müller. Nissan versus At Cupra. Nato has lost in the semi-final in all previous 3 duel appearances. Here in the quarter-finals, though, is he going to be able to overhaul Nico Müller's At Cupra? Only the second time that Müller and the At Cupra team have made it through since Berlin earlier on this year. As we look at Müller coming down towards the first corner.
I'd say these are the 2 surprises that made it into the duel.
So
Fantastic
far,
job, both by
those who have won
Nico
have all
Müller,
come out
Norman
second
Nato, the Nissan team,
in the
Cupra
duel,
team to
so
get in here. And they're going to be trying
good
to
news
make
for
absolutely
Müller.
most of this today and try and pull a big result out the last race of the season.
So
Looks like
currently
he's struggling a little bit with understeer on the exit of 9
slower
there,
than
did
Nathan.
Norman Nato. Just coming onto the back of that
Oh,
straight. He's still got enough of an
back.
advantage
He
over
tends
Nico
slower than
Müller.
Nathan.
Just kisses the wall on the outside of 13. It makes me brace myself every time there. As he comes down in towards 16 here for Norman Nato. Managed to get Nissan's only podium back in Rome earlier on this season. Fighting and soaring his way at the steering wheel, but Müller's pulling it back here in the second sector. Nearly 2/10 is the deficit that he's got to pull back over Norman Nato, and Nato with a good final sector, but a bit of oversteer out of 19 there. Might cost him a 1/10 of a second or 2 as he comes to the timing line. What is Norman Nato's time going to be? It's a 1:10.493. Nico Müller comes through into the braking zone of 19, into the right-hander, flicks it into the left of turn 20, and aims for the timing line. Is Müller going to have an answer in the At Cupra? Don't think he is. He closes the deficit down, but it is going to be Norman Nato that moves forwards into the semi-finals here for Nissan.
Right.
So, good lap time then from Norman Nato, and positive reinforcement from
Right,
the team
so
down in the pit box as well.
Nato has
The car
won,
was a little bit on edge at some points throughout that lap. It wasn't the quickest that we've seen over the course of the duels so far, but crucially not the slowest there
being the
either,
winners.
actually.
Absolutely right. It was an
That's the first
interesting
I've seen
point
in a
when he
while,
gets
to be
19
honest.
and he got big oversteer, which is what not
Next
really
up
expected
is
on the
Van
high
Dorn
grade
against
dual
Evans.
surface.
Evans and Van
Over to the
Dorn
fourth of our
have both been
quarterfinals, the final of the
in the
quarterfinals, if you will.
duels.
DS Penske's
At
Stoffel
both
Van Dorn,
duels
the
all weekend.
outgoing champion, versus Mitch
So
Evans.
it's looking more likely,
Well, there we
according
go.
to
Harsh
predictor
predictor.
votes, that
Evans did win
the
yesterday.
winner would be Evans.
Right then.
So
We're
we'll
going to
see.
start the lap and then we're going to go to a
Starting
split
the lap
screen
now.
afterwards. Obviously, there's a time delay between them both.
Yeah, let's have a look. So Evans here just stuck behind the Norman Nato's Nissan. So coming across the timing line then is Mitch Evans in the Jaguar TCS racing machine. Stoffel Van Dorn a little bit further up the road. Just coming through 5 and 6, running down the hill into the daylight very briefly. Van Dorn just a fraction behind Evans. And look at that snap of oversteer out of 9.
Did you see it dance both ways? The back went out to the left, out to the right. That just shows the torque of the electric motor and the lack of grip. But Evans fractionally up the road, but I do mean fractionally through sector 1.
These cars dancing around, sliding like a dog on a polished floor down in towards turn 16 here for Stoffel Van Dorn. Is he going to be able to overhaul Mitch Evans? It's the Jaguar with the advantage at the moment. Look at that, couple of corrections of the steering just coming into 16 there as well. He's not looking as comfortable with the car as Mitch Evans is, as you can see him on the right-hand side of your picture. Into the final couple of corners, Van Dorn closing a little bit, coming in towards the third.
Right, so Evans seems to be ahead of Van Dorn by 1.5 tenths to a second. It's looking good for Evans. Evans has been quite dominant all weekend whenever he's tried to race. That gap has just widened to 2 tenths of a second. And Evans has managed to beat Van Dorn. That's not a new feeling for Van Dorn this weekend. I don't even think this is the first time they faced each other this weekend. Mitch Evans wins this one, goes into the semi-final. And we're going to have the semi-finals soon.
Managed to wrestle out a really strong performance.
But Tom, how strong does Mitch Evans look in that Jaguar?
Unassailable at some
it's
points.
a phenomenal job yet again.
Let's have a look at some super slow-mos here of Mitch Evans just riding his way over the bumps.
It's interesting to see some of the cars losing contact, the tyres losing contact with the ground. Some of them ride the bumps slightly better, but unfortunately they're not, for them, they're not riding it quicker than the Jaguar. That setup on the Jaguar is working ever so well, both the powertrain and the mechanical setup of that car.
Well, Stoffel Van Dorn's lost his last 3 quarter-final appearances, and sadly that becomes a 4th for him this season. So Dennis and Cassidy in semi-final A, as it were. And then semi-final B will have Norman Natto versus Mitch Evans. Two of those drivers will progress forwards into the final in the fight for pole position. It'll be really interesting to see how that works out as we get ready to see what is going to happen here in London ahead of round 16. Well, there was a flirt of rain. Don't think it's going to be affecting things too much. But before we get the semis underway, let's go down to Nikki and the team in pit lane.
Well, that is going to be a cracking semi-final, that's for sure. Karine, let's just talk about how, by the time we get through to qualifying on day 2, these guys, the drivers, they've had a lot of time on track at the moment, and they're just trying to continually eke out that little extra bit of performance. And we just saw Jake Dennis there put in an absolutely flying lap again.
Yeah, as you say, they're now pretty familiar with the track, but I think the challenge there is the conditions, right? The track that they had in qualifying yesterday compared to today, you got more rubber down, it's cleaned up a bit more, but then you got a bit of drizzle that's come down as well. So, once you've got your references from the day before, it does change, and you do have to adapt to the conditions at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Chris, as well, you're used to having to come back, repeat the performance of what you've just done before, and yet better it every time. How do you approach that from a mental ability and aspect?
I think you try not to look too far ahead. You try to focus just on what you're about to do. And, when it's a long weekend, when you've got a huge amount on your plate, you just have to focus on the here and the now. But I think, chatting about Jake Dennis, I think it's fascinating to see how he bounced back after becoming world champion. It usually goes one of two ways. You either get, you don't sleep a wink all night and you can't perform the next day, or, as he's shown, he's still got the eye of the tiger. He's still up for it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Bringing back his A game, that is for sure. So what are we going to predict for pole position?
It's going to be super tight, I have to say. I think Evans is driving well, but Dennis has got the confidence, and the shackles have come off, isn't he? He doesn't have the baggage weighing him down of trying to fight for the championship, so he's free to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is the opportunity, of course, for you guys to get involved with the FE Predictor. Who do you think is going to win today's race and qualifying, of course? Do get involved. And so, Chris, just finally, when it comes back down to that team's championship, pulling together as a team, how tough is that going to be?
It's tough, but it's such a big carrot dangling for them. I think they have to put to bed all the stuff that happened yesterday, focus on this afternoon, one big push, and the title is there for the taking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be hard not to think about what's going to happen at the end. They've got to focus about, what's in hand. There is still so much to play for. That team's championship going right down to the wire, and qualifying will obviously have a critical effect on that result.
To the plaudits of the crowd here in London. Sadly, didn't make it through from the quarterfinals. Looking forward to see how he will get on under racing conditions a bit later on here this afternoon. So, 5 minutes to go until the semi-finals will get underway. It'll be Jake Dennis versus Nick Cassidy, Norman Natto versus Mitch Evans, and then only 2 of those drivers will move into the finals in the fight for pole position. In a bit of housekeeping, actually, after 13 races without a winner from pole, we've now got the top 3 in the championship in the duel for the semi-finals for the 3rd race in succession. So right on board here with Nick Cassidy, Dario. This is his onboard lap from the duels a few moments ago. Talk us through what's happening here.
Just watch how quickly the car changes direction on this high grip surface through turn 2. Got to set back up for 3, keep it a little bit tighter on exit of 3 because you're immediately turning into 4. Outside now onto a different surface, another different surface down the hill of the ramp. Turn 6, quick flick to the right, 7. Trying to get the power down through 8, stay over to the left because 9 is immediately upon you. Big bump at the apex, back to full throttle. Watch for the car sliding, there you go, over the bumps as he comes up to look now for the braking point of 10 over those bumps again. To the right, to the left, using as much of the curb as possible. To the left, and then there's a wall on your right. Right out to the exit walls. The car's just dancing again over those bumps, trying to put all 350 kilowatts of power down. Braking, and it snaps oversteer into 16. Got the apex. Well done, Nick Cassidy. Back over to the right for the left-hander. 17 straight into the right-hander. 18 again, and now a different surface. Up the hill, watch for the car to go airborne. There you go, braking heavily. Halfway through the corner, back onto the high grip surface. Get to the throttle as early as possible. Maximum traction.
The first race well, the first semi-final duel between Dennis and Cassidy is about to begin, I believe. They're about to head out onto the fast lane, or have they just done it? I am not sure. So I'll pass back over.
How are things there? Because this could not be any closer than the team champs.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've got all four Jaguar cars making the duels. Got Nick and Mitch, who look like they could progress through to the final against each other. Me and Seb, I think, will be lining up next to each other on the grid as well in like 5th and 6th. So, yeah, could be interesting.
Does that mean there's almost a mini battle potentially with you and Seb, where it's actually not necessarily about guaranteeing points, but guaranteeing that you're ahead of him?
Yeah, but if Nick wins, then I've got to do more against Seb, and if Mitch wins, then Seb's got to do more against me. So that is taken that Mitch comes second or wins.
What you're basically saying, it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, watch this space.
Race well today.
Cheers, thank you.
With a smile on his face, looks like he's come into this final race weekend with a positive mental attitude. But obviously there is a huge amount of pressure on him to perform today.
Yeah, listen, he did a good job yesterday. He was in that fight, wasn't he? And then got caught up in Buemi's accident down at the penultimate corner. But I think he's actually driven well this year. I think he's been a bit unlucky at times, but I think he has bounced back from a very tough season he had last year, and he's driven well. And you know, the points don't really reflect the pace and speed he's had across the season.
And of course, this could be his last race with Jaguar Racing. Therefore, he probably just wants to give the team a fantastic send-off.
Yeah, listen, they've had a good time together, haven't they? They've won races, they've had good results, and they've worked well together over that period of time. But every good journey comes to an end, and we believe he's off to McLaren. So yeah, we'll hopefully they'll have a good day to finish off.
So we've got in the next duels going out. Who have we got going out now? Jake Dennis. You had the opportunity to obviously catch up with Jake earlier on in the week. Have you had the chance to catch up with him since winning the championship?
I haven't spoken to him. I've just given him a thumbs up this morning when he drove past. I just love to speak to him and see how he's feeling and what it feels like to become world champion, because you
can share notes now, can't you?
It was just so much build up an expectation and pressure on him, and you could see how much he wanted it and how much of a roller coaster that race was yesterday. I mean, so many moments that swung in the favour of, all four of the top protagonists, and he came out on top.
Yeah, how he kept his cool, I have no idea. Well, I don't think he did at all times,
yes.
But, he managed to get to the end of the race as a champion, that's for sure. Right, well, let's go in and watch them in their semi-final duel.
Thank you very much indeed, Nikki, Karun, and to Chris Hoy as well. Time for the semi-final duels then. Jake Dennis.
Right, so Dennis and Cassidy are about to make their way out onto the track for their semi-final duel against each other to get themselves into the final. First out on the track would be Dennis, then followed by Cassidy. Let's just say it's probably not the best idea to have two people who just competing in a title fight against each other, and one who's just won and one who's just lost together on a track, facing each other again. Let's hope for everyone's sake Cassidy wins just to make it even.
But it's certainly qualifying, arguably better than the Porsche, and the margins though are so tight, and it's how much risk are you willing to take. And it takes just the slightest millisecond that makes a mistake, and it's all over. So, who's feeling brave, and who's willing to take that extra bit of risk?
Well, those watching at home on the Predictor app, do you know, it was 50-50, completely even Stevens between the two. So let's see how this is going to work out here for Jake Dennis. Just one opportunity to set a flying lap. If you're watching Formula E for the first time, the duels essentially come from the group stages of qualifying. We have 22 drivers. We split them into two groups of 11 drivers. The top four from each of those groups go forwards into the duels. We have the quarterfinals, and then we go into the semi-finals and then into the finals with two drivers going head-to-head for pole position. We're about to find out which of the two between Jake Dennis and Nick Cassidy it is going to be as Dennis comes across the line, down in towards the first corner. This is one of the pinch points on the lap, and where we saw a couple of drivers getting it wrong in free practice here earlier on this morning.
Dennis's rhythm through that first series of corners is absolutely spectacular. Now I've got a split screen. We've delayed Dennis's run. But just look how well his car changes direction through this first series of corners. Now they come back outside again over the tracks for the doors of the XL. Snap of oversteer for Dennis in turn 5 though.
Yeah, let's see whether he is going to be able to hold the advantage that he's got over Nick Cassidy. A tenth of a second it sits, but Cassidy pulling it back with that snap of oversteer, costing Dennis a little bit of time through the right of turn 9.
Right.
Cassidy's car looking a little bit
Hopefully,
easier
so far,
to get
Cassidy
power out there.
is
The thing is he's going to try and carry that momentum all the way down the straight in towards 10 and 11. This is the chicane. Then flicking into 12 and 13. Thread the eye of a needle through here. He's flirting with the wall, they know.
That's it so far. Now going to pick this breaking point. You can be a little bit greedy here and gain some time or completely lose everything.
Cassidy looks like he's holding a little bit of an advantage, only by a couple of hundredths of a second though, as they come through in towards the final sector of the lap, through the right-hander, over the rise, and Cassidy now pulling out a tenth over Jake Dennis. Can he hold it there though until the checkered flag comes out through 19 and through turn 20? Cassidy with the advantage though, but is it going to be enough to hold it? Cassidy goes with a 1:10.5 and Dennis with a 1:10.7, so it's Nick Cassidy and Envision that progress forward.
Thankfully, Nick Cassidy has won, and it is going into the final for a chance to get pole position for today's race. He won by, you heard, tenth of a second. So next up on the semi-final duels is NATO and it's Evans.
I can't imagine what that must be like from a driver's point of view with such a limited margin for error. Right, semi-final 2 then. Norman Nato versus Mitch Evans, and unsurprisingly, given the fact that Mitch Evans has been on top form here and actually set the pole position time here yesterday and would have started there but for a grid penalty, he gets 93% of the predictor vote. 7% of you reckon that Norman Nato will be able to overhaul the Kiwi.
Tough one for Norman. The performance just has not quite been there this season with the Nissan, but they will be delighted to have just made it to the duels, I think. It's Mitch Evans now has crossed the timing line, picking out that braking point for turn 1, carrying maximum speed, sometimes a little flip of the throttle between 1 and 2.
Just give you a chance to sort the back end of the car out through there. So Nato, 37 thousandths down on Evans as he comes out of turn number 9, but Evans surely is going to just increase that advantage coming through this next series of corners, unless he makes a mistake. That is the beauty of these duels with only one flying lap. There's such a limited margin for error as Nato there. I'm sure he clattered the wall on the outside of turn 13. He's catching Mitch Evans ever so briefly, but I think Evans is going to claw that back as we come in towards the next sector time. 1.5 tenths the advantage it was, and look at that, nearly 3 tenths now here. He's doubled it.
Yeah, Evans is just...
Right, so Evans is now is 3.5 tenths faster than NATO is. And it's coming up to the final corner now. And the gap increases to 4 tenths faster than NATO. Evans is about to make his way past the line, and he increased that gap to half a second, meaning that Evans wins this and is going into the duel fight. Pretty sure this is familiar to yesterday. Yeah, they were the ones who were fighting yesterday too. This is twice in a row. I really worry. I hope one of them, the one who didn't win yesterday, won today. Let's hope Cassidy wins. He needs it. Right.
Now, start in third
Pass you
place.
back over now.
So, 3 points for pole position. We've got 1 Jaguar, 1 Envision in the final. And that, whoever qualifies on pole is now going to then take the lead of the team's championship again.
Yeah, this is really going to swing things, isn't it? I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to work out. So, quarterfinals, we saw Dennis, Cassidy, Nato and Evans going through. From the semis, Cassidy and Evans then go for an all-Kiwi showdown ahead of the final round of the ABB FIA Formula E World Teams Championship. And as Dario rightly pointed out just a few moments ago, it is going to be crucial in terms of the Teams Championship. Envision and Jaguar tied on points, 268. So whoever gets pole position will take 3 points forward and give them the lead of the team's standings here this afternoon. Well, the rain that threatened earlier on seems to have stayed away for the time being. And Nick Cassidy, is he going to be on for pole position? Do you know, he started on pole here yesterday only as a result of the fact that Mitch Evans had that grid penalty. But that was his first pole all season. He's been consistently up the sharp end of the field in terms of racing, but in terms of qualifying, that's where his slight downfall has been. Meanwhile, Jake Dennis back into the pit lane as he failed to make it through from the semi-finals, but still gets the applaud of the home crowd. He said earlier on today, pressure's off really. He can have a nice, calm day's worth of racing, but I'm sure he'll wanted to get into the finals if he possibly could to go out with a bang. But it is going to be the second row for Jake Dennis in 4th place. And this is the Teams Championship, just to remind you as well. Jaguar, TCS Racing and Envision tied on points on 268 apiece. Whoever of the two drivers who takes pole will give their team the lead in the standings going into the final race of the season this afternoon. Takoy Porsche and Avalanche Andretti separated by just 5 points there for third as well. And also further down, DS Penske Maserati, 13 points between the two, and then 5 points between Neon McLaren and Nissan. So the finals are just a few moments away. Let's go down to Radzi in the pit lane first of all before we get underway.
Jake Dennis, what an absolute privilege this must be to come to the XL Arena as world champion, knowing you finish as world champion as relaxed as you like.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much enjoyment. I've never really experienced a day like today, you know, where you've already become champion and you're having to race at such a high level. So I still really want to do well. Like when I made it into the duels, I was proper pumped. You know, my lap into there was like one of the best I've done, and yeah, Michael and everyone was so happy. And yeah, I mean, made a mistake against Nick, which probably cost us a little bit, but yeah, nevertheless, starting on the second row, just going to have some fun out there for sure.
Look, I'm not bothered when you even say that. Made a mistake, not bothered because the world champion. What is it like getting to drink this in as you're doing it and drive relaxed?
Yeah, it's just such a rare occasion, you know. You always got so much pressure on you. You've always got the people expecting for you to deliver, and you know, I could have just drove around at the back all day today and no one would have said anything, but the boys are still pushing me hard to try and get a top result. I'm going to try and get another podium for them and, you know, beat my own record. So, yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying every moment of it, waving to the fans, and it's just a real privilege to be racing at such a high level with absolutely zero pressure. So, going to enjoy the race. I can be the guy taking all the risk and, yeah, not worrying about if we DNF or not. And, yeah. I'm excited to do that because I know Jaguar and Porsche are fighting for the constructors.
Well, world champion Jake Dennis will see you when it comes to the race, but as for us here, we can avert our gaze to the final. It's going to be a Jaguar powertrain lockout, and it's the battle of the Kiwis.
Just moments away then from deciding who is going to reign supreme in the final battle for pole position of 2023. It's a repeat of yesterday's final, Nick Cassidy versus Mitch Evans, but a lot riding on it in terms of the Teams Championship. As we mentioned a few times already, Jaguar and Envision tied on points at the top. 3 points are awarded for pole position, so whichever of the two drivers. This is what the laps were like in terms of the semi-finals here, Dario, between Cassidy and Evans, just doing a bit of a split screen.
So this is like the mock exam, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Are you going to be marking them?
Yes, absolutely, every time.
Report to the headmaster's office.
Yeah, a bit more understeer from Mitch Evans on the right-hand side of the screen, just through turn 5. This is turn 8, now as he accelerates out. Critical corner coming up, turn 9.
Yep, so coming out of turn 9 up in towards turn 10. Really interesting to see there going through the final series of corners there. So Nick Cassidy there just threading the eye of a needle. And we then cross back to Mitch Evans coming in towards 15 and then turn 16. This is where it's so bumpy under braking.
I will say that these drivers, both of them, incredibly smooth on the controls, on the wheel, on the steering, on the throttle, on the brake. And they're so accurate with their car placement too. There's a reason they're in the final.
Yeah, through in towards the final series of corners as they come over the rise into the left-hander onto the ultra-grippy inside surface. On that occasion, it was Mitch Evans who reigned supreme, but let's see whether he is going to be able to do the business this afternoon and claim what is technically a second pole in succession. That grid penalty that he had yesterday really put him out of contention and down in 6th on the grid. Let's head down to Nikki before we get the finals underway, however.
It is quite remarkable to see both of those drivers back in the final. And not only are they intense competitors on track, but they're also the best of buddies off track. I mean, Oliver, you actually had breakfast with them this morning. I would love to know a bit of insight. What was the conversation?
I had breakfast with Mitch Evans and Antonio Felix da Costa, and you could clearly see that contrary to Jake Dennis's day, you know, there's still a lot of pressure on those two drivers to perform with for their teams. And yeah, having Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans go out there for the final now, both good friends, both from New Zealand, and I think they could be teammates next year. So as a racing driver, that has to be in the back of your mind. You know, you want to beat your teammate and set the tone going into next year. And yeah, of course, there's a lot to play for here.
It feels like Mitch Evans, though, he's got so much momentum at the moment. Obviously, after yesterday's win, he also had those cracking performances in Rome. I mean, how important is that to build on the confidence from yesterday into today's race?
Yeah, definitely. Mitch Evans, he's a guy who leaves nothing on the track, leaves no stone unturned, and you can see it in his eyes this morning that he definitely had a job to focus on today, and he's going to go out there. The Gen 3 car around this track right now just looks so impressive now with the grip being laid onto the tarmac, and the rolling speed through the corners, especially through turn 16, is really impressive.
Well, we've seen both the cars going out on track.
Making their way out onto the track, Cassidy and Evans. Cassidy appears to be going first on the track, followed by Evans. I think the chance of rain occurring has now passed, at least temporarily. This is the fight for pole position in today's race later on, though these two fought for the same thing yesterday, for yesterday's race, so let's hope that the one who didn't win yesterday, Cassidy, wins today, just as payback. Make it even. Right. Cassidy is about to head onto the track. Votes all point to Evans being the victor of today's final duel. So we'll see how that goes. Green lights are about to go out for Cassidy to start racing on the track. And green. Cassidy is now out on the track. Evans is just waiting behind him, waiting for his light to turn green. And it does now. Green light for Evans, and now both Cassidy and Evans are out on the track, making their warm-up lap before they start their lap battle.
Following him at a predetermined amount of time and distance so that they don't bump into one another on track and disrupt the flying laps. In terms of the qualifying results, the best average qualifier this year has been Mitch Evans. Average start position has been 5.8. Could end the year with pole position here this afternoon as well, which would make it, well, I suppose it depends if you count yesterday as a pole position, despite the fact he started 6th.
He got the points.
He did get the points, so yeah, so that would make it his 4th pole of 2023. Could be a second pole position, though, for Nick Cassidy, because although he didn't technically get the fastest lap, he did start from pole. Such is the anomaly. Sam Bird, though, watching on inside the Jaguar TCS Racing Garage as Nick Cassidy comes across the timing line to begin his one and only flying lap in the fight for pole position. Down in towards turn 1 here at London. Nice line through there. These
now
are two
making
drivers at the
their way
absolute top
for
of their game.
their lap
the Jaguar
battle,
powertrains behind them working really nicely here too.
Yep,
Just a little
here we
swing
are.
of oversteer though as he entered turn
Begin.
4, and that might have cost Nick Cassidy just a fraction of performance. Let's see what Mitch Evans does through this first series of 5 corners that are really all tied together.
Mitch Evans on the bottom right-hand side of your picture as well. In the first mini sector, it was Evans with a little advantage.
Currently, Evans is 100ths, nearly 200ths per second faster. That's now moved up to almost almost a tenth faster than Cassidy is. It looks like the predictor was right, though Cassidy is catching. It's now down to exactly 500ths of a second. Oh, and Cassidy has just overtaken Evans, and it is 800ths of a second faster, though crossing the line now. Evans seems to be a little faster by almost 500ths of a second, and it's crossing the line. Ooh! Evans loses by 100ths of a second exactly, meaning that Nick Cassidy is on pole for today's race later on. They both won something this weekend.
Mighty lap under pressure from Nick Cassidy. Great lap from Mitch Evans too, but Nick Cassidy just getting there under the wire. Champions performance from both drivers.
Real pressure on Nick Cassidy. The first time he's actually set the fastest time to qualify on pole position from 2023, and that makes it actually his first pole time since New York race 2 in 2022 as well. So really impressive performance from Nick Cassidy. Great for Jaguar as well to have Mitch Evans on the outside of the front row of the grid. You can see here some super slow-mos as Cassidy threaded the eye of a needle, just clipping the inside curve there.
Right, so that was the qualifying for the second race for Formula E at London. The race will be on later on today with Nick Cassidy in pole position, followed by Evans. And that's it for now. Go over to Silver Channel, though there are other lives currently going on. There's the F1 race today, and I think there's also some other races today from different sports. So also there is obviously this race today, the second London Formula E race. That will be on later on today. It's a whole day of motorsports. This is what Joshua calls one of the busiest races of the weekend. And it's basically, join us for the other lives. I'm not sure whether I will be in the F1 race today due to not feeling quite well, though I was just well enough to do this. So thank you for joining, and join the other lives, of course. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.